I get this question all the time, sometimes politely, sometimes it's like I just keyed somebody's truck. People will ask, why are you so hard on the Republican Party? I mean, aren't you a conservative? Aren't you a lifelong Republican voter? Well, yes, and that's exactly why. Because if you're on my team and you keep fumbling on purpose, you don't get a participation trophy, you get a film review. And I'm bringing the clipboard. Now, here's the problem. A lot of Republican leadership has mastered a political magic trick. They campaign like lions and govern like office interns. They'll roar on Fox News and then bring their voices down to just a dull whisper in the committee room. Some of my friends say, well, why don't you blame the Democrats? And I've even had some comments here on the channel. Why don't you put the blame where it belongs, on the Democrats, that they made this mess? And look, I do blame Democrats for their part, but here's the difference. I don't need to spend 7 minutes explaining why Democrats do Democrat stuff. Democrats are at least honest about the direction they want to drive the bus and take the country. Now, we would disagree, but I respect the clarity. What crushes me is when my party looks me dead in the face and says, we're going to fix it. Then we put them into power and suddenly it's, oops, well, would you look at that? Another procedural obstacle, sorry. And that obstacle usually is the donor class, by the way. If you can't govern when you have power, then you don't have principles, you have a grift. And that grift usually means that you're content to be a token or a phony opposition. Let me give you a few examples, okay? We can talk about Obamacare first, right? Or the Affordable Care Act. The Republicans have embraced this. For years, Republicans held show votes, votes to repeal or gut Obamacare, but they only held those votes when they knew it wouldn't become a law. Time magazine reported Republicans held over 50 votes to repeal or amend the ACA across the years. PolitiFact documented that even by 2012, the House had voted to repeal all or part of Obamacare dozens of times with the clear understanding that it wasn't going anywhere under then President Barack Obama. Well, then we get 2016 and 2017. Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the White House. And what happens? They face plant on live television. And then, of course, we have successive midterms and effectively 5 election cycles with the Trump GOP, where the GOP overall is a net loser. And the GOP is not losing because the Democrats stopped them. They lost because Republicans love campaigning on problems more than solving them. But by the way, that's a Democrat thing too. We can just say politicians, our current class of leadership, whatever party they are, that's what they love. The repeal effort famously collapsed with a late night Senate vote where John McCain, the late John McCain, voted no to help derail the push to repeal Obamacare. So for years, we get repeal, repeal, repeal. And then when the moment comes, it's, well, actually, could we get a study, like a study committee and a bipartisan working group? And then could we also get a nice fruit tray while we're at it? Any Evian? They have the keys. They have the car. And they still called for an Uber, I can give you an example with immigration, okay? Again, I'm conservative. I do believe borders matter. And I don't think you have to be conservative to believe borders matter. I think people believe borders matter. I believe law matters. I believe order matters. But what do we actually get? Well, we get a lot of rhetoric. And then a reality where enforcement priorities get narrowed, massaged, and marketed. In 2025 reporting, the Trump administration ordered pauses or shifts around enforcement in sectors like farms and hospitality due to economic pressure, while still emphasizing a focus on criminal, quote unquote, criminal removals. Okay, so effectively, the Trump administration is not deporting criminal illegal aliens. They are only deporting really criminal illegal aliens. And Trump himself publicly floated versions of letting certain workers get a pass or a pathway to leave and then return, especially for farms and hotels, because the hospitality industry was complaining. Now, you can argue policy details and all that is fine, but we do have to call it what it is in political effect. When the message becomes, hey, if you're here illegally, but you're working and you're not a criminal, you can stay, that's not strict enforcement. That is soft amnesty, okay, at least in its function, right? I mean, if the law only applies when it's convenient, it's not law. In my view, it's cowardice because we don't want to stand up to the truth. We're afraid to lose power. And I've mentioned this before on the channel. Now, here's the dark one, and this is the one I've talked about really all week this week. The Epstein case, the Epstein files. I want to be careful. These are serious allegations. This is serious evil we're dealing with here. But we can say this, based on multiple outlets, is that the DOJ's handling of the Epstein materials has become a public scandal because of all the redactions, all the delayed release fights that we've seen on Capitol Hill, and even the mistakes that exposed victims. Reuters reported lawmakers accusing Attorney General Pam Bondi of concealing names tied to Epstein documents, with heated testimony and concerns about excessive redactions. The AP reported the Justice Department withdrew thousands of Epstein files after inadequate redactions exposed sensitive victim information, including names and other identifiers. And attorneys for survivors have condemned how the release was handled and argued the process shields the powerful people while harming the victims. Now, I do think this is a cover-up, but can we sit here and say case closed? Of course not. But I can say this. If they'll manipulate the truth to protect the powerful, they will definitely manufacture the truth for you and me. If the party in power can't deliver transparency and justice in a case involving the sex trafficking and sex slavery of children, what then can they be trusted to do on anyone's behalf when the cameras are off? If they are willing to protect monsters to preserve their own power, they'll definitely protect their donors. And it's not just that, it's really a broader pattern, all right? We get big talk, little action, and selective courage. And then, of course, we can get to other hot-button topics. There's the green agenda, particularly how it erodes private property rights, especially in rural America. All right, across multiple states, landowners have been raising alarms about eminent domain and infrastructure buildouts, particularly transmission lines that are tied to energy policy and renewables, where people feel squeezed by corporate and regulatory power. Farm organizations have been putting resources out about eminent domain and property rights conflicts in the renewable and transmission space. And now you add to that the AI data center land rush. The Guardian reported that communities are organizing to stop data centers, describing noise, diesel generators, energy strain, utility cost concerns, not to mention the water that is needed to operate for the cooling operations of these data centers is a strain on the local water supply. In fact, many of the AI data centers going into places consume more energy, more electricity, energy, than do the residents of entire cities. The Guardian also noted that dozens of groups across many states are fighting these projects because the right to private property shouldn't disappear just because the grid needs more juice for somebody else's server farm, because the people in power have already made deals with them and they're dependent on those new donors now. Now, in balance, I want to be consistent. The Trump tax cuts, those did have real benefits for many families and businesses. But a huge chunk of the individual provisions were designed to sunset, meaning they can expire unless Congress acts. So yes, there have been good policies, but here's the thing, executive orders can be reversed. Court interpretations can and do change. And agency rules swing from one side to the other. It is legislation that is the durable work. And if we keep substituting headline moments for durable governing, then the next Democrat administration that can erase half of these gains with a pen and a press conference on day one. If your policy only survives on a signature, it's not a legacy, it's a Hallmark card. It's nice, but how long do I have to hold on to this before I can throw it away, right? Now, I get another question. Why don't I just rant about the Democrats? Why don't I call them names? Why don't I do what the other conservative talkers do? Why don't I make fun of them? And I give them all little cute nicknames, and I could give you lots of own libs sound bites. Well, first, because of my faith in Jesus, I believe every person is created by God and therefore made in the image of God. I realize that is not a shared view, but that is what I believe. So because of that, I believe every person deserves at least a baseline level of respect just because of them being created in the image of God. So I don't want to add my voice to the clanging gong of talking heads that are, giving you great sound bites and giving you memes you can share on social media, but what of it? We're just learning to hate each other. I'd like to be a different voice, even though I have a different view than many people, and many people perhaps in the sound of my voice or within the viewing of this show. A second, I want to bring a different voice to the political commentary field, not one that compromises, but one that's able to articulate positions and views with conviction, compassion, and specific purpose. Because, look, owning the libs is the easy stuff, right? We can all own each other. We can all troll each other, and that gets clicks. It's a sugar rush. It's a quick fix of dopamine. It's politics as entertainment, but it doesn't secure the border. It doesn't restore sanity. It doesn't protect kids. It doesn't lower food prices. It doesn't lower gas prices. It doesn't help our economy. It doesn't bring justice. Main victories don't pay the mortgage. They don't secure the border, and they don't protect our kids. They just make keyboard warriors and social media stooges feel busy and good about themselves. And, you know, for my part with the Republicans, I think this is what Ronald Reagan felt like in the 60s. You know, when he said, and he testified, he said, you know, I haven't left the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. I feel the same way. I haven't left the Republican Party, but the Republican Party has left me. And we're all stuck in this two-party system that we know is corrupt, we know is broken. I think both sides will agree to that. So I'm not here to fantasize about a third party that can't win a city council race. I'm here to apply pressure where I can. I'm not a Democrat. I can't apply pressure to them. They don't care what I say. But there is one advantage the left has, and it's simple. They demand their leaders deliver. They don't just cheer the vibe. They're not satisfied with a bumper sticker and an emotionally stirring campaign. They demand the vote count. Conservatives, especially I believe Christian conservatives, need to recover that kind of backbone. Not with rage, not with idolatry, not with a cult of personality politics, but with calmness, with clarity, courage, consistency, and conviction. Scripture doesn't give us permission to lie for our side. Do not bear false witness. This is one of the 10 commandments. We're told, let our yes be yes and our no be no. And by we, I'm saying Christians. What the Bible, Micah 6:8, what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, walk humbly, love mercy? Truth and justice are not partisan concepts. They are biblical. They are also objective. So let me wrap up with this, all right? And sometimes this keeps me up at night, particularly when we get into election season. If the GOP demoralizes its own base and continues to do so by promising the moon and then delivering a bumper sticker, then they will lose not because Democrats outsmarted them, but because Republicans hollowed themselves out. And for what? Not standing for anything, not doing the hard work, living off memes, feeding their donors, performing for the cameras, bread and circus all around. So yes, I am critical because this is my party. These are my values they're supposed to represent in Congress. These are my people that are supposed to represent me. And I refuse to clap for betrayal just because the betrayer wears a red tie. Now, to my progressive and liberal viewers, and I know there are some of you who have seen some of these shorts and some of our longer form videos, I thank you for watching. Don't confuse my frustration with my party, with the policy agreement, with progressive policy agreement, all right? I'm not moving to the left. I'm calling my side to be honest. And I'm happy to have these conversations with you. I hope you'll listen to it. I want to treat you respectfully. I hope you'll do the same on this channel, not just to me, but in the comment section as well. And to my conservative friends, conservative viewers, we have to be careful that we're not asking each other to lower our standards. We should be demanding that our Republican representatives rise to a higher standard. The burden is on them, not us. Because if we want a free republic worth handing to our kids, we're going to need more than slogans. You know, my generation, I'm on the tail end of Gen X, all right? So we're the first generation that's going to hand over a nation that's in worse shape than it was when we got it from our parents. Now, I don't want to hand over to my kids a worse America. I want it to be better for my kids and for yours too. I don't want to be another step closer to government tyranny. I don't want to be the party that lays in the infrastructure for mass government surveillance of all of us. I want America to be 35 more steps further into freedom and a free future. But for that, we've got to be honest. We've got to tell the truth. We've got to call balls and strikes, and we've got to be honest about our side and not hypnotized by the magical, swinging clock of one charismatic leader or another. We need courage. We need to demand justice. And we need leaders who fear God more than they fear losing a donor at their next fundraiser dinner. Okay? I am not ultimately loyal to any party or politician. I am loyal to Jesus Christ. He is my Lord. He is my Savior. He is my Creator. And because of that loyalty to Jesus, I want there to be a free and prosperous America for another 250 years, not because this is heaven on earth, but because there has never been a country as great or as free or as prosperous as ours. I want that to continue for my kids, for your kids. But I fear, and I think you do too, that we are losing that. Now, we might have different fears coming from different perspectives, but what's the true thing? We're losing the greatness of this country. So look, we can let representatives like Maxine Waters, she can reclaim all of her time that she wants. I want to reclaim my country, and I pray that you do too. I want to thank you again for spending some time with us. Remember, you can find Culture Crossroads. We have an hour-long weekly show on Beck TV. That's at becktv.plus, becktv.plus. You go there, you click on shows at the top of the page, and then you'll see Culture Crossroads right there. And you can also find these Culture Crossroads daily doses daily, usually afternoons or evenings when we're able to get these posted. And we appreciate you taking the time to check them out. Once again, thanks to everybody. No matter where you're coming from, Republican, Democrat, conservative, progressive, thank you for spending some time and watching the show.